In 6th generation form, Subaru's Forester serves up a very similar recipe for loyal customers wanting a more seriously capable kind of mid-sized SUV. It's still a full hybrid, it's still great off-road, but rural folk might now find this car just that bit easier to live with.
Wouldn't it be nice to find a properly capable mid-sized family SUV? A car that could walk the walk as well as talking the talk. Well, perhaps a car like this one, Subaru's 6th generation Forester. Over almost 3 decades and through over 5 million sales, the Forester's been almost all things to quite a few different people. The first generation SF series model of 1997 was an estate, as was its SG series successor of 2002. With the 3rd generation SH design of 2008 and the 4th generation SJ series car of 2012, a crossover theme was pursued. Only with the MK5 SK series model of 2019 did the Forester really become what the 2025 model year Mark 6 model is today, a fully fledged SUV. It's accurate to think of this latest SL design as an evolution of its predecessor. Much is, after all, shared. But the car is now bigger and sits on a much more sophisticated version of the Subaru global platform. There's also a smarter, more digital cabin. As before, there's full hybrid e-Boxer power and Subaru's legendary symmetrical four-wheel drive system, creating a more capable kind of mid-sized SUV. You can find out more about this kind of model by downloading the Car and Driving app. And if your interest is specifically in this Forester, you'll need to stay with us for the industry's most comprehensive review, the Car and Driving Road Test. Very few mid-sized SUVs these days are properly capable in the rough, and even fewer of these are full hybrids, as this Forester has been since 2019. Or at least it claims to be. Actually, the e-Boxer drivetrain's battery is so small, at 0.57 kilowatt hours, that it's not much more use than a mild hybrid system would be, which means that it's mainly employed for parking manoeuvres or inching along in heavy traffic. You certainly won't feel it powering the car alone at normal driving speeds. We'd hoped that Subaru might have evolved this 2-litre direct injection electrified powertrain for this 6th generation SL model, but in fact it's much as before, albeit with a few legislation-driven tweaks. The brand says that there are 24 technical improvements aimed at enhancing driving characteristics. These updates have also, unfortunately, reduced this unit's previous 148 bhp output to 134, slowing the 0 to 62 mph time to 12.2 seconds on the way to 116 miles an hour. That sprint time assumes selection of the faster of the 2 drive settings, S for Sport. The other more relaxed mode is I for Intelligent. That acceleration figure is about half a second slower than the previous generation model, a car that already felt significantly slower than the segment norm. Most class rivals reach the 62 mph benchmark at least 2 seconds quicker. Perhaps more significantly, the torque figure is slightly down on the previous Model 2 from 190 to 182 Newton meters, though Subaru is keen to point out that the towing limit remains unaltered at 1,872 kilograms. That towing capability is helped by the provision of the same symmetrical permanent four-wheel drive system as before. Most rivals have an on-demand 4x4 setup that only activates the rear wheels when a lack of traction demands it, by which point off-road you might already be stuck. That's a lot less likely to happen in a Forester, something also aided by the same generous 220 millimeters of ground clearance as before. This is vastly more than most rivals, which Subaru considers essential since 84% of Forester customers live in rural areas and appreciate the relatively lofty 500mm wading depth. Further helping in the mud is hill descent control and the brand's X-Mode system with its 2 off-road drive settings, deep snow and mud and snow and dirt. The traction control and hill descent control systems now also work when you're driving in reverse. And all of this is allied with impressive approach ramp breakover and departure angles of 20.4, 25.7 and 21 degrees respectively. And you can monitor all that via a driving statistics section in the car info part of the centre screen, which also has real-time drivetrain graphics. Where the Forester needed to improve though is in its on-road demeanour. To that end, the Subaru global platform that it sits on has been substantially evolved, now using 27 metres of structural adhesive instead of the previous 8 metres. As a result, it's lighter and 10% more torsionally rigid. If you'd hoped this might significantly reduce body roll at speeds around tight bends, you'll be a little disappointed. There's still plenty of that. But since the Forester will hardly ever be driven in that kind of manner, this is a lot less relevant than the fact that the structural improvements have enhanced body control over bumps. Not so effective are the changes supposedly made to sharpen up the steering, which retains its previous rather spongy over-assisted feel. It'll all mean that a convert from a less capable SUV might still think the tarmac drive dynamics to be behind the class standard, and also might object to the gruff Boxer engine note and relatively lethargic Lineartronic CVT auto gearbox with its 7 steps or ratios. But if you want to go almost everywhere in an SUV of this sort, you might well now think the latest version of this Forester to be a much better compromise than it was before. Well, a Subaru loyalist would certainly recognise this as a Forester, solid and boxy. There are no swept-backed crossover genes here. Likely owners won't want them. Subaru says they're often people of the so-called stealth wealth who could afford a much more expensive SUV, but like the understated appeal of this one. The Forester has been getting progressively bigger over the generations, and this one follows suit. Now 30mm longer at 4.67 metres, but still 1.73 metres tall, with the same large boxy glass area and great all-round sight lines, thanks to this now lower belt line, and we'll come back to that. Squared off wheel arches house 18-inch, or as in this case, 19-inch dark grey aluminium alloy rims. All variants come with these black roof rails, and there are neat touches like this little vent in the front wheel arch and this symmetrical four-wheel drive badge on the D-pillar. The main visual changes with this 6th generation model lie here at the more modern-looking front end, where trim strips flow out of a central brand badge into these sleeker LED steering responsive headlamps. The twin creased bonnet flows down into this gloss black grille. There are small triangular shaped fog lights on each side, and it's refreshing that Subaru doesn't feel the need to add any sort of faux plastic skid plate panel further down. We're not quite sure, however, what these blanked off lower panels on either side are for. The back is also quite different for this SL generation design, with spaced out model lettering across the tailgate, which also sports an E-Boxer badge and a wide black mid-level strip to emphasise this Mark 6 model's 15mm increase in width. You also get this black shark fin roof antenna and these little triangular corner reflectors. Underneath it all sits an only lightly updated version of the Subaru global platform that undergirded the previous generation model. But what's more important are, of course, the changes that lie within. So let's take a look. Modern segment rivals these days almost always hit you with a screen fest behind the wheel, and sure enough, a big 11.6-inch central screen features here, but it isn't the defining element of this cabin, which instead has been designed to be eminently more sensible in its priorities. So you sit quite high, there's great all-round vision, and as you settle into the 10-way power-operated heated seats with their effective lumbar adjustment, you begin to feel the benefit of a medically influenced front chair design that improves back support and reduces head movement, apparently by up to 44%. Subaru cabins are usually models of wipe clean durability, but the difference with this 6th generation Forester is that this doesn't mean acres of cheap feeling scratchy plastic. Instead, almost every surface seems now to be coated in the kind of thick rubberized plastic you might find on the sole of a better quality outdoor shoe. which suits the intended all-weather vibe, but won't please those looking for slush-moulded premium ambience. Still, the Fuji Heavy Industries brand has made a bit more effort this time round at making this interior more inviting with copious amounts of coloured stitching, a neat dimpled finish on the panel ahead of the front passenger, and on this top-spec variant, a smart suede finish for the seat bolsters. Not everything's an improvement though. It's a pity that the old car's rotary climate controls have made way for dual-zone ventilation functions, now mainly relocated to the centre screen, where they operate with big temperature control buttons. And we miss the old model's small upper centre display that gave you useful quick-look info. The array of thumb-sized buttons on the steering wheel looks initially a little confusing, but eventually becomes as familiar as the big chunky indicator stalks with regular use. As with the large screen icons, the idea is everything can be easily operated with gloved hands or on bumpy roads. Dedicated followers of fashion probably won't like the old tech analog instrument dials. We actually find them rather refreshing. In between these gauges is a small display split into 3 sections. The lower part shows your gear selection and an odometer, while the midsection has a drive assist graphic with a digital speedo and the prevailing speed limit. The upper part is customizable to show either trip data, an MPG meter, tyre pressures, your compass reading, brake regen, your audio selection, or time and temperature. Earlier we mentioned the big portrait format Starlink centre screen. It's relatively low resolution, not particularly fast in response, and the main central part of the display has big screen icons that are easy to access for the reasons we gave before, but make the native interface look at first glance rather like something from a toddler's iPad. Above these, at the very top of the monitor, is a narrow strip you can customise to show either audio selection, the nav road you're on, drive data, or your current X mode drive selection. A little disappointingly, this full HD monitor has now inhaled most of the climate functions, which reside in a broad band at the very bottom of the screen, just below permanently displaying shortcut options for drive and safety systems and phone connection. Still, there's plenty on here. Wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, voice recognition, Wi-Fi, and a 360-degree surround view camera system all come included. We also like the provided reminder screen, which prompts you not only for maintenance visits, but also for things like birthdays and anniversaries. You'd think, though, that navigation would be a standard feature on every version of a car of this price. That isn't included with base trim, which is annoying because in the nav system, you'll find what might end up being one of your favourite features about this car, the What 3 Words function, allowing you to pinpoint a specific destination within 3 metres of where you are in your Forester. So, if for instance you're a country vet, you can tell the car exactly which gate in which field you need to enter. The other thing you might really like about this car is the excellent all-round vision you get out of it. We referenced the reason for that earlier, the way that Subaru has lowered the side window line by 14mm compared to the previous generation model. As for cabin practicalities, well, there aren't quite as many storage compartments as you get in some rivals, and the door bins won't take much more than small bottles, but unlike most of its rivals, Subaru hasn't forgotten an overhead sunglasses compartment, and if you forget your shades, you'll be thankful for the rather flimsy plastic strips that pull out of the sun visors to further help you with blinding sunlight. There are twin cup holders near the gear stick, and you get this deep lidded box between the seats with a pen tray and a 12-volt socket in front. Lower down the centre stack, you'll find both USB-A and USB-C ports, plus a now rarely seen feature, an aux-in socket. You can charge your phone wirelessly just below, but when we've done so, we've often found the handset sliding about while driving because there's no holder or rubberised base to stop the thing from sliding about. As before, there's plenty of space in the back. You'd expect that boxy, glassy shape to provide for an airy feel and prodigious levels of headspace, and so it proves. That lower window line makes a welcome change from the way that rival model rear cabins are becoming gradually more claustrophobic with their shallower windows and rising belt lines. The cabin's wide enough and the centre tunnel's low enough to properly admit a third middle-seated adult, and there are both USB-A 2.4 amp and USB-C 3 amp ports back here, plus the usual couple of ISOFIX child seat points. Rear seat folk do without individual overhead reading lights, but do get an armrest with cup holders, twin level, seat back pockets, reasonable door bins and big quarter-light windows, which mean you don't have to stretch to a version with this sliding sunroof in order to get an airy feeling back here. Top spec also gets you heated rear seats as well. There's no option of a third seating row, so time to take a look out back. With this 6th generation model, shallower bumpers aim to make boot access easier, and the powered tailgate rises to reveal a square and usable space 508 litres in size. That'll be sufficient for most customers, but it's worth pointing out that this figure is some way off quite a few class rivals. A Volkswagen Tiguan, for instance, offers 145 litres more. There's not much space beneath the boot floor, certainly not enough to allow for provision of the kind of full-sized or even temporary-sized spare wheel that an SUV this capable ought to have. Still, the little well provided is quite deep, and it's possible to stow the tonneau cover under here. Wide recesses either side mean it'll be easier to get awkward items like pushchairs or golf bags in, which can go widthwise. There are 2 stout bag hooks on each side, 4 floor tie-downs and a 12-volt socket on the left-hand side. Unfortunately though, Subaru still hasn't got around to providing either a ski hatch or a convenient 40-20-40 rear seat back split, which means that if you've rear seated passengers, any long items you want to carry will have to go on the roof. Flattening the rear bench can be done easily though with cargo sidewall catches, and with everything folded, boot capacity rises to 1,732 litres. As we filmed in summer 2025, pricing for this 6th generation Forester was starting at around £40,000, and there were 3 trim levels: limited, field, or as in this case, touring. That might sound a lot, and it's certainly a big increase from the £36,000 starting price the brand was asking last time we tested the previous model back in 2020. But Subaru says it's the cheapest way of getting into a proper 4x4 in the class. Don't be confused by lazy reviewers who tell you that other mid-sized SUVs are far cheaper, often neglecting to mention that those competitors are in those cheap forms only driven by their front wheels. Subaru's claim stacks up too. The cheapest Skoda Karoq cost over £41,000 at the time of this review. Think around £44,000 for a 4-wheel drive Kia Sportage or Hyundai Tucson, and for the cheapest 4-wheel drive Volkswagen Tiguan around £47,000. The mid-level field spec Forester most will choose looks better value than all of those, and you could even make a case for spending around £44,000 on the top spec touring version that we've got here. Forester spec is pretty comprehensive too. With all models, the kit list runs to full LED headlights with auto activation and high beam assist, front fog lamps, heated power folding mirrors, UV protection glass roof rails, rain sensitive wipers, wiper de-icers, headlight washers, intelligent adaptive cruise control, and a Thatcham Category 1 alarm and immobiliser. You get alloy wheels, of course, as well, 18-inch in size on the volume models, plus a 360-degree surround camera system. Inside, there's dual-zone air conditioning, a keyless access system with a push-button starter, synthetic leather upholstery, heated 10-way power adjustable front seats with memory settings, plus a wireless phone charger and leather for the gear stick, and the multifunction steering wheel. Also standard is the larger, much improved Subaru Starlink infotainment and audio system with its colour touchscreen, the portal via which you access the DAB stereo system and use the Bluetooth phone functionality. The package includes Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring, Wi-Fi and voice recognition. Field spec adds rear privacy glass, a heated steering wheel, a powered gesture tailgate and navigation. This top touring trim gets you larger 19-inch wheels, heated rear seats, black leather and suede upholstery, and a power sliding UV glass sunroof. Subaru doesn't really do extra cost items apart from a tow bar, but it doesn't have any problem in charging you another £695 for paint if you choose not to go with the 3 standard colours, which are brilliant bronze metallic, crystal white pearl, or as in this case, sapphire blue pearl. Safety provision has always been a Forester strong point and is now even further improved. Subaru's eyesight assist technology and driver monitoring system have both been upgraded with added functionality. This now includes an emergency driving stop system, which can bring the vehicle to a complete halt if needed, and in a safe way if the driver can no longer control the vehicle in an emergency situation. Eyesight driver assist technology is very sensitive. Take your eyes off the road for more than a few seconds and you'll be admonished for it. But it offers an awful lot. There are things you might expect, like a pre-collision braking, forward collision warning, traffic sign recognition, blind spot detection, rear cross traffic alert, an intelligent speed limiter, and lane departure warning with emergency lane keeping assist. But also quite a few features you might not expect, like autonomous emergency steering, lane sway warning, lead vehicle start alert, pre-collision throttle management and reverse vehicle detection. There's also driver monitoring, an occupant detection system and the usual full complement of airbags, including a driver's knee bag and a front passenger seat cushion bag, all linked of course to an e-call system. It's all very reassuring. Normally, a more capable car is a more expensive one to run. You'd certainly expect that the permanent symmetrical four-wheel drive system of this Forester would exact more of a fuel and emissions penalty than would be found on most other rivals. Cars that trundle around in two-wheel drive most of the time, with all-wheel traction only being introduced when needed. Thanks to the hybrid technology, you might be pleasantly surprised on that score, but don't get your hopes up too high. The official combined cycle figure is 34.9 mpg with CO2 emissions at 183 grams per kilometre. These are unremarkable figures despite all the efforts that Subaru has gone to in order to meet current legislation with this latest version of the e-Boxer engine. Improvements include new exhaust particulate filters to ensure emissions compliance, new cylinder blocks, mounts, piston rings and camshafts, plus changes to the auxiliaries, the ECU and the engine mounts. What else? Well, servicing is needed quite frequently every year, or 9,320 miles. There's a maintenance section of the centre screen which briefs you on engine oil, oil filter, tyre wear and your maintenance schedule. Insurance is Group 23. Residuals are strong by class standards, and for ownership peace of mind, you get a 3-year or 125,000 mile warranty, and the car's traction battery has its own 8-year, 100,000 mile warranty. You also get a 3-year recovery and roadside assistance program you'll almost certainly never need. Nothing comes for nothing, and it still doesn't if you add electrification into the mix. The previous generation hybrid Forester proved that, and this replacement model still does. The bottom line is that an SUV properly engineered to get you through the worst driving conditions is never going to be quite as efficient to run as one that isn't, or as light and agile to drive. To be honest, we'd hoped that the switch to a stiffer version of the Subaru global platform might have brought this Mark VI Forester a little closer to the class standard in both these areas than it actually has. Still, plenty of other things that might have put you off the previous generation version of this car have been sorted. So, media connectivity is now properly up to scratch, and the cabin at last feels of reasonable quality. Of course, this Subaru still isn't perfect. You might well be disappointed by the lack of engine and transmission choice. Ride and refinement could still be better, and pricing has of course risen. In summary, most hybrid SUVs are in some way compromised when it comes to things like towing and off-roading, but this one isn't. It's fashionable without being trendy and built to last while never feeling utilitarian. In short, it's the kind of car it really ought to be, a vehicle in which four-wheel drive is fundamental rather than simply an optional extra. And as a result, it's one of the best SUVs in its class to buy if you really plan on using it to its full potential. True, the result may not be as smoothly cultured as less capable rivals, but when conditions worsen, you won't care about that, and you'll probably be glad that you chose one of these.